summit? Because there's some nighttime stuff, so don't think it's over. Right? So this is a panel on the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. I'm going to go ahead and let them all introduce themselves. They'll share for a little while and then maybe open up for questions for folks who may have them in the audience. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Take it away, Sister Mary Peter.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Gregory, for all the behind the scenes work. You're pretty flawless. And thanks everybody for taking time with us. So we'll just introduce ourselves first, and then if it's okay with you, we'll give you a little bit of who we are. But what we really like to do, especially honoring what Manu laid down for us, is just open our hearts and share some story with you and get a conversation going. Because really it's this community that is making this happen, and we just like to be a part of it. So my name is Sister Mary Peter, M-E-R-R-Y. There are enough M-A-R-Ys in the community. I've been a sister for 37 years. I started in Toronto way back when, before phones. And my pronouns are they, them, and she, her, and I'm really glad to be with you.
My name is Simon Dingwasan. I am not a sister, but I'm a founding member of the Companions of Dorothy the Worker, and we were birthed under the auspices of the sisters, which was a real blessing for us. My pronouns are they, them, their, and I am also an Episcopal seminarian.
Yeah. I'm Sister Helen Wheels. I'm not quite as senior as Mary Peter. I started in '88 when I was, just a child. And my pronouns are whatever, because the sisters play fast and loose with the pronouns.
Yes, we do.
Hello, I'm Sister Diana Fire. I'm a sister for 12 years now, and my pronouns are pretty loose too. It does not matter to me. Just call me what you will, and I'll try to remember to respond.
So sisters are pretty loose are obviously the sub-theme of the afternoon. So way back in 1979, two queer activists from Iowa were living in the mission. And as one of our founders, Sister Vish, finally confessed, they were bored. And they had thrown out all of their drag, except for two sister habits that they had borrowed from a convent in Iowa when they wanted to do a drag version of The Sound of Music. And one afternoon, they simply put them on, walked up into the Castro, and what happened was electric. People came out of the bars, people gravitated to them, asked them to hear their confessions and lay down blessings and forgive them and heal them and support them. And they were not prepared for that. They were just bored and put on some old robes. But they were activists, and they knew they were onto something. And I share that story because I think it's really important in the context of a 3-day seminar on drag and spirituality to be really honest that we're all just a bunch of booga drag nuns from the province. And that we didn't start with a big plan. And I hope in our conversation today what you'll realize is the sisters became real in the relationship. It was the way the community responded to the image of queer men dressed as traditional nuns that changed everything. And then not long after, when the HIV and AIDS crisis hit, that's what I call our Velveteen Rabbit moment that made us real, when it was more than just camp and performance and street art, which are all really important, but our friends were dying and no one would physically touch them, and no one would give them housing, and no one would bring them food. And when we thought about what traditionally identified women doing sistering did, they hold the body. They comfort and tender and support and care. And they do all the hard work that the men claimed all the power and glory for. And in those years, that's when you needed shit done. So you got a bunch of drag nuns to do the work and get it done for people. And I'd like to think that in the span of these 40 some odd years since, what we've been doing is living in this conversation, in this relationship, and using the drag, these tools, to kind of open a conversation. And what's been powerful in the last 20 years, thanks to the internet, there are sisters everywhere now in very surprising places like rural Arkansas, southern Florida, in Uruguay, in Mexico, in little communities in rural France, places you would never imagine this. But they saw something in this image of service and this desire to bring joy and space to people, and they're making it work. And in every one of those communities, we look different because the way we put on a habit, a sister's outfit, is taken out of the history of the community we're working with. So in Saskatchewan, we look like a bunch of Ukrainian immigrant nuns with big bread baskets on our heads. In Los Angeles, the Hoobie Doobie looks like the Hollywood Bowl. And in Palm Springs, the Wimple looks like the visitor center. So in every community, we're a little different. And so I just wanted to open with that to let you know where we're coming from and maybe just put a little seed of where we're going. The first two sisters were pretty much cis-identified clone boys hanging out in the Castro. They were both white. They were both intellectual. That's not who we are anymore. The sisters have gone through a lot of different transformations. And you're seeing us today because we're sponsoring a really big event in the city called Barrison Weekend. So you're getting the people who are left, but we're gonna try to do a good job. But the thing about it is now our sisters come in all sorts of gender expressions: bio-female, bio-male, gender fluid, young. Our oldest sister is 79 in Vancouver. She's the hardest working nun I know. And increasingly, our younger sisters and next gen sisters are helping the rest of us decolonize the image of what it means to be a sister. Particularly for me as a Canadian nun, we've had a decade of conversation about residential schools and the exploitation and genocidal work against First Nations people. One of the sisters I'm most proud about is a Diné sister, a Navajo sister in Arizona, named Sister Navi Ho. And she has been struggling for the last few years with this vocation to be a sister in a community where that name is the agent of genocidal oppression. Manu was talking about faith not being your oppressor, but institutions being your oppressor. Sisters who look like this often were the tool of oppression. And so she's really reimagining what it means to be a sister in that context and coming up with all sorts of amazing reachbacks into Navajo culture. She talks about herself from time to time as an auntie. She just won Miss Two-Spirit Montana. She's been out on the Cowboy circuit. So their future looks very different than who we were before. And that's because we continue to be in a conversation. And so that's all I'll say to start us off. But I do want to celebrate Simon and Ben being here. The Companions of Dorothy the Worker were a bunch of queer people in traditional Christian religious clerical organizations that decided they'd had enough of trying to fight to get into the tiny room called the church. And they were doing really important work on the streets and in the bars and in the hospitals. And so they're like, why don't we support each other? And why don't we really make the focus of our work the queer people that we see every day and love and care about and learn from them? And so they needed a sponsor. They were so desperate they had to choose a bunch of drag sisters in San Francisco, but it's been working out since 2015. And I'm really grateful Simon's here to share his story too. So just open it up to everybody.
I do want to pick up on that because I realize, as I'm listening to you talk about the work and that the sisters do in the world, it's very Franciscan. And I say that because I came to San Francisco in 2007 to join the Society of St. Francis and become a Franciscan friar, which is a community under the Episcopal Church. And our friary is on Dolores Street, right across from Dolores Park, where the sisters have their wonderful Hungry Jesus contest every Easter. And it was always this competition because we would have people coming to our small little friary to have mass, and we'd have to like shout over the noise, and it caused a lot of consternation. And I thought, I was much younger then, and I was didn't really know what it meant to be religious or faithful in any way. And so, I was like, well, they're really getting in the way. I don't really understand what's going on here. But it was through the work of Diana Wheeler, who was a deacon and founded the Companions of Dorothy the Worker. She introduced me to some sisters and encouraged me just to come and see, which is one of these like scriptural texts, right? Come and see. And I remember walking into the Castro in my habit and not getting any real attention or having people sort of look at us suspiciously. And these two sisters came by and everyone flocked to them. And it was so lovely to see folks come alive and really connect with that image, right? That sacramental image. I mean, and sacrament in that sort of old school definition, right? The outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual grace. They wanted to tap into that. I thought, that's what I want too. I want to learn how to do that. And how to get the church to understand that that's the work that we're called to do, right? Is to be sacramental presences for people so that they know that they are alive and loved and beautiful and whole exactly as they are. They don't have to change a thing, right? And this is what I learned from the sisters. And I did leave the order in 2014 and am now on this journey to become an Episcopal priest. And one of the things that I always do is, in my preaching, I always mention drag queens because to me, right, that movement of the courage it takes, right, to express yourself fully, to allow the grace to shine through you and to let those parts of you out so that others can see that, that is the holy work. And that is, I think, a lot we can learn from. And some people have said, are you going to be the drag queen preacher? And I was like, yeah, if I have to. I will absolutely take on that mantle because we are not doing enough, and we are not proclaiming the love that we say we proclaim, and that's got to end. So.
Well, my story is a little different, but so I started with the sisters in what we laughingly call the old-fashioned way. I found out I was dating one. Back in '88, I was dating a sister. Well, found out I was dating a sister. And to be honest, at that point in my life, I was drag phobic. I didn't know any drag queens. I wasn't comfortable around them. So all of a sudden, finding out that I was sleeping with one was a shock. Luckily, he refused to shave his beard. So there was that. I got recruited as a priest in the sisters initially as Father Butch, even though at that time the order did not allow male persona in the order at all. And I got a lot of crap because I was seen with the sisters a lot. But things change with the sisters over the years. They just roll and change. And before I knew it, I was a member fully with the sisters. And there were other male personas. The comical thing about it is we're all nuns now. Every priest at that time became a nun, partly because there's a power in the gender change. And especially drag queens can be beautiful and lovely, but there's the shock value of seeing something striking with a beard. And so the male sisters who dress up in the robes have an extra shock value that really makes people pay attention. And I was going to share one specific story. Way back in the early 90s, there was a church out in Sacramento that was in their pews giving out literature on how people should vote. Needless to say, it was anti-gay. And we went out to protest. And we were literally in fear for our lives doing it, but it was so worth it. And we got threatened. We got threatened heavily, but the news cameras came out, so they never dared to do anything to us. And one boy, kind of emotional, one boy left their congregation and joined our protest against them, E.J. Byington. He ended up getting beaten up by his brother, and he was adopted by one of the sisters later on. and was going to be a sister. And then the state of Iowa, not Iowa, one of the other states, revoked the adoption and sent him to jail where he committed suicide. And that's the sort of thing the sisters, why we're here, is to prevent that kind of thing, to bring joy, universal joy, and to expiate that stigmatic guilt of making people feel guilty for being who they are. We are all born good people. Some of us choose to ignore that and become evil, but a lot of people find lovely ways of being joyful and sing and dance and carry on and tell jokes. And that's what makes the drag community worthwhile. And there is a spirituality in that. And it's not necessarily just for people who have a faith. I am, or at least I was brought up to be atheist, but I believe so much in spirituality that I actually helped the sisters form a offshoot, a spiritual organization called PIMP, Perpetual Indulgence Ministry Program, where we were going to actually go out and help people enjoy and embrace their spirituality, no matter what it was. We don't care. We don't care what your spirituality is. We want to help people find it. And it's not just sisters doing that. It is other drag queens and other entertainers doing this in the queer community. And we are here to support you to do it. We love you all.
Hello. So I came, my sister's story is I came to Pride in 1999 from Kansas City, Missouri. And I did drag at that time, just regular street hooker drag, I guess. And I thought I was pretty hot shit. So I'm like traipsing up and down Pink Saturday in heels that I really ought not to have been wearing on the street because they were killing me. And I remember I walked into the Midnight Sun back when it had the red curtains, like not what it is now, but it was like a maze at a haunted house. And it was packed full of people. We tried to find a seat and couldn't find a seat. And I was with my roommate from Kansas City and my roommate from college who lived here, and they were having a fight. So I had to like ride the line of I gotta live with this woman. This is my friend for a long time. So I'm like, yeah, try to have fun anyway, because it's Pink Saturday and we're here to have fun. We came all the way from Kansas City to have fun. We finally walked into what was Moby Dick's, or what is Moby Dick's, and I found a seat. And I'm like, oh, thank God I can sit down. And so I sat down, and somebody turned to me and said, that seat belongs to Sister So-and-so, whoever it was. And when they come back, you'll have to get up. I'm like, that's fine. The blood is rushing back into my toes. I should be good for another half hour or so. And whichever sister it was, and I really honestly could not tell you, came back and she said, girl, I have seen you doing your thing up and down the street, and you need to sit down. You need to sit down. I don't know who she was, but thank God she let me sit down. And I took that with me back to Kansas City. And, you know, years later, my parents had both passed away, and I kind of like stopped doing drag, and I kind of sort of fell out of my community in Kansas City. And I'm like, I don't really want to be here anymore. So where do I want to be? And I had met my good friend Noelle, who's also a sister Pansies, and she and I killed dragons on EverQuest 2. Every day we killed dragons on EverQuest 2. We got together with 24 of our friends and killed dragons, and we've never met any of these people in real life, but we were killing dragons anyway. We knew each other that way for 2 years. And a few years later, I said, you know, we should, some of us just like come to Kansas City. It's sort of in the middle of the country. Why don't you all come? So she came, she stayed at my house, and some other people came from other places. And when I met her, I was like, you know, my parents are dead. I want to move. And I kind of was like New York, Chicago, my brother lives in Dallas, none of those places, San Francisco. I'd been here that one time. So I came out to visit Pansies, and I had a really nice weekend with her and her husband. And I went back to Kansas City, and I had garage sale after garage sale after garage sale. And I sold a 2.5-story home full of stuff. And I flew on a plane, and I had five suitcases worth of things to my name at that point. And I realized I'm homeless. I'm as homeless as I'm ever going to be that I know of. And I got to Pansy's house, and I don't know, I met one of the sisters, and then they were like, well, we're going to go to the Cartier exhibit, which was at the Legion of Honor.
Yeah.
Legion of Honor. And so I went, and I met this one, and I met Barbara Ganesh, and I met, I don't know who. There were probably 5 or 6 sisters there, and I just sort of like glommed onto them. I'd found community again, and it seemed right. And so my big plan was to live in San Francisco for at least a year before I did anything with anybody. I wasn't going to date anybody. I wasn't going to do anything like that. But it wasn't even that long, and I met the sisters, and well, here we are. So, you know, you maybe fall out with where you are, but you may pick back up. And whether that's spirituality or what that was, I don't know, but it definitely felt like whatever they were doing as a Catholic and as an ex-drag queen, it sort of did this for me. It sort of merged. Because you know, there are things about Catholicism that are very horrifying to me. But there were parts of that spirituality, that belief system that really resonate with so many people. Probably all of you have grown up in some sort of way where you either are or knew somebody who went to church, and they were pretty good people, but you also knew some other people who went to church who were kind of assholes. So here we are, and now we're doing this. So that's my little story. Peter, back to you.
Just to open it up a little bit, one of the things I hope our sisters and Simon can talk about, there's a lot of this kind of spontaneity in becoming a sister. You don't grow up thinking, well, now some people do, but you don't usually grow up going, I'm going to be a nun. And one of the things about it is there's this blueprint out there, kind of like the big drag queens of old. You see this kind of aspirational image. There's ideas about what that might be. And then something comes into your path, pushes you in, and a door is opened. So I can't think of how many people I know, even in this room, who are kind of scrappy young people, and they fell on hard times, met a powerful drag queen, and she gave them a couch to sit on for an evening, or gave them a hot meal, or helped them buy their first pair of heels, and slowly but surely created family for them. So for me, the sisters are a little bit like that. We're like a blueprint of family, where you come in and a door opens and suddenly you've got all these people around you. Like good drag family, that means there's a lot of internal drama that we don't publicize. But it means that you've got a safe harbor. And the more that becomes real, the more this takes on meaning. And what I'd like to hear from you guys is, for me, I know when I first became a sister, not everybody wore the white face. I'm not wearing it today because I've got some health issues, but we started wearing whiteface in San Francisco because one of our early members was an escort and was an SM Dom escort in a very masculine sort of situation. And it was a small community, and they were starting to get business issues from being a femme nun in the daytime and then trying to be a Dom SM escort in the evening. So the face became a mask. And sometimes when people see us, they think we're putting on a mask to hide. But I found over time, whether I'm wearing the white face or not, I'm having permission to be more who I am, fully, completely. And so I just want to ask, Simon, and knowing us, and Helen and Diana, how over time has this changed from maybe being a character to really being a tool for becoming your authentic self?
Well, back in the early 90s, all the nuns wore whiteface. All of them, period. It had already become the standard because it's a powerful tool along with the wimple, these things. It makes people just shock value. Sure. The clown nuns. We are the clown nuns, the clown priestesses. And none of the priests, not one of us wore whiteface. And it actually was a hot issue with the order at that time because the nuns generally felt that everybody should be uniform as we could. So they were encouraging the priests to wear whiteface. So we all tried it. We all tried wearing whiteface to varying degrees of success. The male personas at that time were not generally drag queens. We were not used to doing makeup. So there was a learning curve there. I personally did a little better early off because I had been the dresser for Empress Pat Montclair. How I got that position, I cannot even remember. But so I had learned a little bit about makeup. The result was all of us wore makeup, and then there was a very short step to putting on a wimple and a nun's habit. Because it just turned out being a white-faced nun was more important at that time. It's not so much important now. I almost never wear whiteface. Not now. First off, I'm not young. My skin does not like this stuff. But I think that there's room for both now, for sisters to wear whiteface and show this unity of this glamour whores, sacred glamour whores, or not, or just be ourselves as sisters.
For me, I like to wear whiteface because, for one, I feel like it gives people the invitation to come and talk to me. It kind of gives me some anonymity, and it gives them the anonymity sort of as a back. I may recognize them, but they don't know that we've talked about what we've talked about a lot of the times. Maybe they do, maybe, but it seems to be rare. But something I've really enjoyed as we've gotten more sisters of color is how they manipulate the whiteface. Sister Belladonna being a really, really good example. Barbara Ganesh was a good example. Barbara liked to use stencils so she could let some of her brown skin through. Bella does something kind of similar. She does little white dots versus a whole face. And I think that's great because it shows people that we're all different underneath this, because we all look the same with this, even if you can see your arm or whatever. This is what they look at. So if they're seeing a spark of something else underneath, I think it's fantastic that those people have embraced their own selves and said, I'm here and I'm with these people, but I'm also here with these people. And I'm going to find a way to meld that together. And I think that's just been really wonderful to see as we've got more sisters who don't have peachy skin like myself. Yeah.
For me, the whiteface was one of the things that was difficult to overcome when I first encountered sisters. It can be a barrier in the same way that you're talking about the clowning part of that, right? But actually, I've come to really appreciate it. There is something about it that I think, as Diana was saying, it presents a unified whole. And so you become icons of something not yourself, not personal, but icons of something bigger and deeper, and touching into that joy piece of it, which I think is what clowns do, is get us to think, to decenter what we're experiencing, so we think in a new way about it. And so as I encounter sisters, it's like, oh, this is decentering, what's going on here? And it lets me let go of my preconceived ideas of what a sister should be and to experience what sisters are.
Maybe one last piece, and then I really want to open it up to everybody. One thing I think that's unique about sisterhood is we actually take something called vows. So as we learn kind of what it means to be a sister, our history, kind of the work that we do, find our groove, our identity, at some point we sit in front of all of our other sisters and we say, from this day forward, I promise to serve the world by making more space for joy and by getting rid of guilt and shame and standing up to the merchants that use those tools to oppress and colonize my mind and my community. And I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. And I think that is something, even when we're taking it, because you don't have to be sober in taking your vows. We didn't write that down, so we're learning. But when we make those promises, something really does change inside. It's like saying, you're my spouse for the rest of my life, or you're my drag mother and I commit to you for the rest of my life, and you're my drag daughter or my sibling. There's a relationship that's ongoing. And I think for me, and what I'm hearing in the sisters and in Simon, maybe there's an image and an icon, but I think at the root of it, every day I wake up knowing that today I have an opportunity to make more space for joy. And at the same time, something is going to challenge that part of my heart that is still captured by guilt and by shame, where I'm a little not courageous enough. I'm a little trapped, and I'm going to have to push a little further. And so maybe I just open that up because everyone in this room has so many stories, and we just like to hear them and get a conversation, whether it's about your experience of sisters or just if any of this resonates with you or doesn't, open to you. And we'll do our best.
I'm curious. So I was listening to a couple of your stories were about ways in which sisters were able to like protest and fight back against systems that are excluding. I know a big thing that happened this summer was with LA Dodgers, and I found that story interesting because after seemingly losing that ground, it was regained. And I guess I'm wondering what your advice would be for starting conversations with those more powerful organizations in order to regain lost ground.
Well, that is an insightful question.
Can I throw it? So I made mention that my brother lives in Texas. And I don't think, for me, I feel like my conversation with my brother and his wife, who are Republicans, who vote a certain way, who don't know any trans people, who don't really know anybody else who's gay, when I went to visit them last January and we watched the show, we're here. And I had told them, I said, I grew up in small town Iowa. I was that kid. And I cried at least once through all of season 1, every episode, there was something that gave me that lump. And we watched it. And we had been to a strip mall that day, Allen, Texas, which a few months later there was a shooting and I think 4 or 5 people were killed. We watched that show and they had questions. My sister-in-law was like, well, I work with this trans person. What do I say? And she was misgendering all over the place. And I said, first and foremost, talk to them. Say, I'm here for you and I'm going to screw up. I'm going to try not to. But as we watched that show, I had told them, I said, as I was at the mall and I let my 3-year-old niece help me pick my clothes to go to the mall. So I had the brightest things on I could possibly have had in my suitcase, all of them. And I look like anybody in San Francisco, so I didn't think too much about it. But who grew up in a small town and got that look? There's that faggot. There's a queer. And I got that all over that mall that day. And I was telling them that that's had happened. And they're like, no, people in North Texas are so liberal. I'm like, no, you're wrong. And so 2 days later, here's where I'm getting back to where that conversation starts. We had that conversation. We watched that show. I had already left and come home. Actually, I was staying with Sister Lana Jockey in Dallas. And they called me. My brother calls me and he says, we watched the rest of what was available. I think it was 3 seasons. In 2 days, they watched 3 seasons. And they both work. So they were both working and finding time to watch the show. He called me and said, you know what, we need to apologize to you because we don't see it. We don't see any of that stuff. And so when I visited this summer, we had more discussion. So I think that discussion that we wonder about having with these big organizations starts with those little people in your lives who are malleable, who are interested in you and who care about you. So you can go talk to the LA Dodgers all day long, but if your brother works on the LA Dodgers, that's who you talk to.
Yeah.
That's who you go to. You don't go to the big place. You go to the little place where you actually have some emotional sway. Do that.
Just so we're also clear, the sisters have not always been media darlings or have sway. Back in the 90s, early 90s, we were still kind of pariah, to be honest. We had done it, the sisters had done a show, what was it, the Red Party. They threw the Red Party, which was a communist theme party. Unfortunately, they threw it at the White Russian Hall. That did not go over well, not surprisingly, and we were not welcome, not in the gay community even. And it took a lot of work of convincing people we were a different organization. We were not little loose, stupid loose cannons that we were back in the 80s. And it all finally turned around in 1999 when the sisters did Easter in the Castro, actually on Castro Street. And at the time, the Catholic Archdiocese protested it and actually petitioned the city to revoke our permit. And where it flipped was 3 of the Board of Supervisors came to us, Carol Migden, Mark Leno, and Sue Bierman. And Mark Leno actually came to our meeting to support us, and he was actually in tears. He's probably the nicest politician there's ever been. And we've shown, and part of the thing was making those kind of connections with people who had actual real power. And the Catholic Church did us an enormous favor. Instead of the little 10,000 people that we had expected, we got 25. They gave us the best press ever. And they have, no churches ever protested our Easter again. So, yeah.
There's also a political note in that question. And if it's okay, I want to probe that a little bit because I think it's important. Because for trans-identified folks and drag queens right now, we are the target. I mean, let's just not pretend. The hate machine is coming for us. And that's because it brings in money and votes and it distracts from all the failures of end-stage capitalism and fascism. So let's just put that on the table. And it's hard, especially if you're a queer person of color or in a place that's not quite as safe and robust. So what happened in LA was the flash that the hate machine can come after anybody. And I think we just have to own that. It came right after us because they saw the perfect target, right? Queer, weird looking, gender variant, perfect. And baseball, what's more American than baseball, right? Forget that one of the first fundraisers the nuns did was a softball game where we kicked ass and won. Don't fuck with a drag nun in baseball. But the 3 things that changed that situation, we lost. We were disinvited. What changed it? 3 things. The nuns knew that was coming, and we had a plan. We worked with GLAAD. We worked internally in our houses. Those of us with media experience worked with them. We had messaging, and we stuck to it. And the key is we didn't go down to their level and try to respond to the pedophilia lies and all the other bullshit. We talked about how we loved baseball and how we just wore our Dodgers stuff. And we really appreciated all the good stuff the community did. And we held the space long enough for our allies to show up. And that's the second thing. When the hate machine comes after you, if you're all alone, you're going to lose. But if you've done the work day in and day out to build community, to show up for each other, to be present for each other. I was thinking of the ducal courts the other day. The message of that was, we are America's court. We look like everybody. Everybody is a part of the ducal court. We're so proud of that. That took a lot of work to get to that place. So that work, there's no shortcut for that. And then the third thing is we were saved by young queer kids. TikTok exploded with young trans-identified, gender-fluid kids who said, I'm not really sure I know who they are. I think I might have seen one on the streets of LA, but I just read about them on Google. And oh my God, the stuff that they do, we got to show up for them. And we got to show up for them because going after them, they're coming after us. So that sense of solidarity. So I think those 3 ingredients, right? Being aware there's a hate machine out there and being ready, having allyship and really doing the hard work every day to show up for each other, and then letting your friends get in there. Nobody throws shade better than a young 20-something on TikTok. It's instant. I don't have to do that work. And I think that the other thing I want to say to that, because it's real, like the violence is real, the danger is real, the assaults are real. Our Eureka sisters are experiencing this. There's a podcaster out there who's trying to be the next hate guru, and he's trying to target us there as well. So, and we have some sisters who are getting triggered because of their experiences of violence. Holding one another in front of that and understanding, as Diana said, the difference between the hate machine and the people who maybe live surrounded by the hate machine but aren't hateful. Like, keep those channels open, but also make sure you've got love and support in your life and people are lifting you up and holding you and carrying you. Because nobody should be in front of the Fox News hate machine all by themselves. That's just not a winning strategy. So thank you for that. That was a great question. Another
question. I think I love the sisters so much. That was my first experience in the store. Also my first experience of like drama. But I also learned in the past few years that sisters have been struggling to stay in San Francisco, a lot of different like changes in the city and like change of rent and like how the city's not being very supportive to community of activists, because I really consider the sisters one of like main activists in the city with the queer community. So I'm curious, how is that going? Are you all okay? Are we gonna miss the sisters? Anytime is San Francisco up for big? Like, like how is everything going for you after the pandemic and all the hardships? I just wanted to like generally check it.
So I've probably been to the most recent meeting. Yeah. So we had some issues, not with the community so much last year, but within our own selves. And we had some stuff that went down that should not have gone down. And to be frank, we were really scraping the bottom of the bank barrel, because that had happened. Someone had done something bad. And I don't think we're going anywhere, because we got so much support from whoever. We have, I think it's the most we've had in our bank account in a very long time. And it has some to do with the Dodgers, because there was residual for probably every house in the country. There was residual, oh, let's help this local organization out, whether it's Arkansas or Omaha or New York or wherever it was, let's help these people out. But Mary Media, what do you think? I don't think that's a problem. Sister Mary Media is sitting here in the middle trying to be incognito. But you're there too. I don't feel like that's a thing. I mean, as all the rest of us, rent's going up, it's hard to stay in the city, but I don't think that means the organization. I mean, I think that means some of us are like, gosh, I wish rent was cheaper, we may move to East Bay. So what does that mean, you know?
Yeah, I think if anything, it draws people, closer together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, we are a community and we are a family. We are here for each other. And the community, like in response to the problems last year, I mean, the community, well, first of all, the nuns went into high gear, got our asses in gear, and started, fundraising, and the community really did come together and offer their support.
So I like your question and I appreciate that you asked, but I think we're okay.
I don't think we're going anywhere.
Yeah. Our stink is on the city. We're good.
We love it. The sisters is part of San Francisco. Yes. Not live in the city, but
Thank you.
Thank you all. This is really illuminating. My first experience with the sisters was in Boston when I was in seminary. And then I moved back home to Albuquerque in 2021. And there's no sisters. Well, as far as I know, there's no organized manifestation of the sisters in the Albuquerque. What does that look like? How does, I don't know that I want to call it mission work, but how does like starting new branches happen, and how do people like me get involved in pushing the sisters or pulling the sisters in spaces that I feel like we need?
You probably know the most about this. It used to be handled solely by the San Francisco Order. I actually did that ages ago. I was the mistress of missions. And I inherited the position kind of by accident. Sister Penny had it, but she was going on to be emperor. she asked me to do it. She goes, oh, don't worry about it. There's nothing really happening. Turns out there were 4 serious orders. San Diego, Eureka, no, LA was already, so was Seattle. But that was it. There were only 3 orders at the time, and then all of a sudden I found all these missions. So we call new houses missions wanting to join this. And luckily, I had lost my job and got unemployment and a pretty good severance. So I was able to spend basically an entire year full-time coaching these and finding out all the pain, all the love and hate towards San Francisco for having all the power. And I recruited nuns from the areas where they were going to, these missions were going to start to help me, because San Francisco wasn't the only house. So Seattle, sisters from Seattle and Los Angeles helped too. Long story short was, the 4 of us agreed, and I founded what is now called the UNPC, the United Nuns Privy Council, which is an inside joke.
PC.
PC. Well, actually, it's from an old 50s movie, actually. Privy Council. Anyway, Council of Privies. Basically, there is an organization that is now running this, that is from all the houses in the United States and Canada. And we have a set of rules. Everybody is treated now the same. There are simple rules. Last that I saw them, you had to have 4 founding members. You had to have a commitment of at least 1 year for all of the members. You had to be a complete nonprofit, no paid salaries. You'd have 501c3, and you had to bylaws. I keep forgetting I'm old. Anyway, there's a set of rules, and over the course of approximately 1 year, it varies from house to house, you earn basically becoming your own house. And you go out and you actually do the work, even though you're not officially a House of Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. You're a mission and recognized as on your way.
Cool.
I mean, under the infrastructure, it basically comes down to the original story. If you feel the impulse, go out in your community and see what happens. Like, see if there's a response, and that will tell you, oh, maybe there's something here. So, and then now that we've got the internet and we've got Facebook and Insta and all these other things, and we've got this wisdom, then you can reach out to the sisters.org, our website, and you can get in touch and people can start giving you support. So you don't have to do the journey all on your own. You'll have big sisters kind of helping you through it. So thanks for asking. We'd love to have something in New Mexico. It's fertile territory.
You've got the Grand Canyon Sisters right next door.
Yep.
I would love to hear if anybody wants to share like a memory with the sisters that you are the most proud of. That just looking back at your history, you're like, that was the peak. That was when I knew like we were doing a good thing, or that you'll just always remember.
I think it's like when you spend time with individuals, that's where I feel like you get the most bang for that buck. You know, you meet up with somebody who's maybe having a rough night or has had a rough week or whatever, and either you're in habit or they maybe just know that you're a sister, or maybe they see your sister ring and it says Perpetual Indulgence and they ask you, and then you have ministry right there sometimes. And those are the moments that I'm the most proud of. I mean, we can throw Pink Saturday till we're sick, and we have. But it's the people you meet at Pink Saturday, not the huge crowd, but that one person who maybe just broke up with their boyfriend Pride weekend, or their girlfriend, or whatever their situation, and you have a little bit of like, let's talk, come over here. That's a not prideful, it's just good. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to help that person out. So that's the work we do versus like whatever
probably one of the most important memories to me was when I used to help at the dinner for PWAs, people with AIDS, back in the 90s. Big Christmas dinner, I mean, just so much fun. And one year, a guy came up and grabbed me, you always tense a little bit when somebody grabs you. And he said, Sister Helen, I am so glad you are here. You were so good to me last year. I had to live to see you again. And that's most touching thing I've ever experienced.
I knew I was on the right track when Sister May Joy Be With You remembered my name and called me by name. I was like, you know me? Like, and I was like, okay, I'm doing the right work. This is where I need to be.
I'll share one story I haven't shared in a while, but because I hold it kind of close. But in this group, it feels right. A couple of years ago, during Folsom Weekend, I was out doing what I call glitter blessings. So if you've seen nuns, we have this habit where we take a little glitter and fairy dust, and you ask the sister for a blessing, they'll give you a little glitter, put it on your shoulder, say a little prayer, and boop, off you go. And I was in the middle of a packed dance floor, and I got pushed into the center in this outfit, which was Pete. And I got turned around, and I locked eyes with this young man who was clearly tweaked out of his mind, obviously just full of meth. And he couldn't see me. He was just somewhere. But something pulled in my heart, and I got out my glitter, and I hit him on the forehead, and I said, I want you to listen to Sister. The person you're with is not the person you should be with. And you're dying, and we need you to live. And from this day forward, I want you to live. I don't know where that came from. And for those of you in the sort of Pentecostal tradition, he fell out on the floor. And then, of course, I'm like, oh my God, I killed him. Got him up and got him hydrated and everything. And then the push of the dance floor, I got pulled away. And he did have a partner who saw what was going on and pulled him away from me. Like most things the sister does, I never saw him again, didn't know what happened. It's kind of retreated from my memory. A decade later, I was at a gathering in the Northwest outside of Seattle. I have a lot of home connections to the tribe up in Vancouver. And this amazing drag queen, Darlene, the ambassador's wife, was like just all hyperventilating and saying, Sister, there's someone here you gotta meet this person. Oh my God, they're talking all about you. I'm like, yeah, okay. Day goes by. She's like, no, I'm serious. She like drags me like only an 8-foot drag queen can, and like shoves me in front of this person. And as soon as I saw him, I knew it was him. And he pulled me aside and said, I just want you to know I was addicted to meth. And the man I was dancing with was my boyfriend and my pimp. And he was dealing and then selling my ads to pay for the drugs. And they were at the Hotel Monaco, and he woke up the next morning and stumbled naked into the bathroom, was washing his face, and looked up and saw this glitter. And at first I was like, what the and then he said it hit him like a thunderbolt. And he packed up all his clothes. His partner was drugged out and sleeping, got on the train, made it back to the Northwest, checked into a sobriety clinic.
Wow.
Had been sober from that day forward. And then asked if I would sponsor him to become a sister. And he since has become one, and I don't share his name out of respect for privacy, but there's a beautiful sister working in the Northwest whose particular mission is to go out onto the street and find young kids who are tweaking and get them into harm reduction and safety. So I just share that because at the end of the day, those of you who do drag, you know that when you do this, it's not just you. Right? You're a channel. Something is coming through you. Doesn't matter what you believe. I tend to pray on a broadband. If you're listening, I'm glad to take it. But I think it's this thing of like, whoever you are inside, that relationship, even as Diana says, if it's just in the shock of the moment where you make a connection, it opens a channel and healing can happen. Not just for them. I've been transformed by that. My whole life has been much more serious in joyful ways because of that. And so I'll offer that because I think each of you knows that experience. It's something that's maybe happened to you or you shared with other people, but that's the power of drag. That's the power of our community. And that's why I'm confident all the fucking haters and the machines coming after us, they're doing it because they know they've already lost. And we just need to remember and to support and love each other through it. So thank you. Good questions. Wow, you guys. It's been like an amazing therapy session probably.
Speaking of therapy, no, I think I so admire the work that the sisters do because you're all out there kind of all the time. And I think it would be wonderful to hear from you all about self-care, especially when you're trying to where, you know, you want to put so much energy and care into the community, but how do you recharge from that? How do you self-care?
Well, sometimes it's really good to have a video game and do a headshot now and again. You get up, well, you have the dragons, or you get up on a whatever, and you wish you were a member of the NRA just long enough and just get whatever it is. Sometimes that's what you do, and sometimes you eat your feelings a little bit. Sometimes you get in the shower and you just like stand there. I mean, we all do the exact same things when we come home from wherever we're coming home from, whether it's work or whatever. Sometimes you just need to do a headshot. Pardon me.
Okay. They're telling me I need to speak, so and I do what I'm told. Self-care is one of those really big topics. It's really hard, and the thing that I discovered when I was a friar and walked around in a habit all the time was that it is important to take off and to be you, and to remember that the thing that we do when we're out there offering pastoral care to people, we need to turn that around and to say, oh, what is it that I need to remember that I'm a person with my own needs. I'm not only there to serve. I love doing that, and I find a great source of joy in that. But I also have things that I don't look at, and sometimes I hide from looking at those things by serving. So just taking the time regularly to retreat and be brave about looking at my own stuff and being tender with myself. I'm just not going
to. One of the things that I've learned from the sisters is to actively remember the things that I've done good. I screw up all the time. And honestly, sometimes it is painful to try to put on all this makeup and drag and then find a taxi and get to an event and then smile and remember to smile and treat people kindly. And when I get home and I'm tired and I have to yank the lashes off, I remind hopefully one person there felt better because I made an effort. Just like you are all making efforts. You are bringing joy into this world. Remind yourself that you're doing it. You are doing the job. You're not criticizing people because of their religion or their ethnicities. You're out there spreading joy. And it's just remind yourself how good you are.
No, I mean, I want to thank you for asking the question because you're an icon for me. So, but I also want to lift up Manu because I listened to your sharing and I really do hear you. And the most important thing you said is that you are grateful that we see you and that you feel loved. And nuns, we buy all our own jewelry, right? The Pope has a cash account, I don't. So I have a day job, and it's a pretty intense one. And I have a family, and I live with my 88-year-old mother-in-law who had a stroke, and we're trying to cope with all that. And I live 40 minutes outside the city because I did lose that toehold. So sometimes it gets kind of tough, right? But then someone like Bonnie says, hey, we're doing this really cool symposium on like dragon spirituality. Can you find some time? And I say yes, because showing up for that is my Velveteen Rabbit moment. It's that moment that I remember, oh, it's real. All this is real. Like there's love flowing here. And it can be performative sometimes, it can be over the top, or it can be tiny and intimate, but it's always real. And so as many times as I can, coming out and being a nun and being there and being seen and feeling the love, that's what helps me. So today you have done a tremendous amount of self-care for me, and I'm really grateful. I know that wasn't the agenda, but I appreciate that you worked it in there, so. And Bonnie is giving us the international drag sign for do a tumbling routine. But because I'm not coordinated, I want to really thank Sister Diana and Sister Helen and soon to be Father Simon and each and every one of you for setting such an abundant table. And maybe we can just take a moment as we're ending up for the people online and for the people who are going to see this later, especially for the young queer kids who are going to see this under their covers, looking at their phone so nobody notices. Just take a moment, get inside your own energy, and think about that little queer kid in you. And just in this moment with your sisters amplifying it, just send that pulse out over Bonnie's live stream, over the air, through the climate change and the worry, the social impact, the war, the borders, the hate, the tapes, the religious stuff. Send that pulse of love. Send that pulse of joy from one queer kid to another. And now for the rest of this gathering, root yourself in that. Be confident that it's real. Be confident that it's transformative. And be confident that you are saving lives by showing up and living your own. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all for coming as well. Hopefully you'll join us tonight at Bethany United.